of the three beverages. The intoxicating part is always the same substance, ethyl alcohol.
You need a drink to have fun.
I do now.
Do you ever take a drink in the morning to relieve a hangover?
The more alcohol that reaches the liver at one time, the more alcohol goes on to the heart unchanged.
So welcome to the Field Alcohologist, and I'm here today with Janica Smith, and who is a longtime bartender and server, and we're going to get a server's take, a bartender's take on some alcohol-related topics. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background and how long you've been doing this, where you've been doing it, and that sort of thing.
I actually started getting into bartending because my parents were both in the industry, and so it kind of fell in my lap a little bit. But I used to be a professional ballerina, and we'd be contracted during the days. But salary wasn't always so hot, and being in the ballet studio all day long was kind of got tiresome. So instead of just teaching ballet at night or on the weekends, I was like, I'll start getting in the restaurant industry, and ended up working great because I could work nights and weekends. I got out of the ballet studio. I started as a hostess at Chevy's in Del Mar back in the day. At age 16. I'm 33 now, but I worked my way up to a little cocktail server, and then I worked my way through several bars in PB, Bub's Dive Bar. And then I found my way into this place's first restaurant was Encinitas Ale House, where I got introduced to beers, craft beer, and that whole process, and Belgian beers and all sorts of things. Then I did some managing for them, and moved to San Francisco. That's where I worked in another dive bar, but then I also worked in one of those 5-star restaurant, craft brewery restaurants. Didn't love it, but definitely felt more comfortable in the dive bar situation. So moved back here. I'm currently going through nursing school, which is another great thing to go along with bartending because I can work short hours at night after I've been done studying. And so I'm currently here at Carlsbad Brewing Company, and then First Street Bar in Encinitas, more of a dive bar.
Okay, cool. So, what would you classify as a dive bar? I'm just curious. What's your take on a dive bar?
Usually, for me, limited food items or none.
Fritos or something like that.
Yeah,
pretzels. Okay.
We have like nacho cheese tortilla chips at First Street. It's delicious. And kind of a little bit more of a darker atmosphere. I think some dive bars, like Bub's Dive Bar, says they're a dive bar now, but I don't feel like that's quite classified as it. But it's usually more that homely feel where everyone's talking to each other and they're really just there to kind of sit at the bar and hang out, whereas some other places might be more of restaurant affiliated or kind of group off into sections. I like the dive bars where everyone's like one big family. Right.
So a lot of local or regulars.
A lot of regulars. The owners are usually just a little bit more laid back. It's their little baby. Whereas, the big restaurants, corporate restaurants, things like that, they're all about the service and this and that. They're not as fun to work for either.
Yeah, I'd imagine there's a lot of corporate policy and kind of things you'd have to do to kind of, So, dive bar related, it's interesting. We had a guest that you also know, Marion Novak, on the last episode, and she talked a little bit about how dive bars actually kind of take care of their patrons maybe a little bit more than some of the bigger places. Did you kind of notice that too?
What does she mean, take care of them?
Well, what she meant, that's a good question. No, I'm sorry. Like in terms of someone needed a ride home that had too many, or that, you knew they were kind of going off the rails a bit, you're more likely maybe to intervene than if you were at, TGI Fridays or something like that.
There's been several places where I worked out where we really care about the regulars. We will allow you to have several cocktails, but we just ask that, you're going to get home safe. And we will make sure and tell these people, we just care about you.
Right.
We just want you to be healthy. We just want you to be safe. Like, please know that for us. And so we definitely will take care of that. Whereas in, the more corporate places, you're looking at servers taking care of tables that might not have the experience or the knowledge of how to monitor someone's drinking and how they're getting home, or be comfortable in getting that person home.
Right.
And then the managers are too busy doing all their other things that they're not paying attention. But when it's a small little bar, even a bigger bar too, but like when you're just being observant of your patrons more, so you're there all the time because that's your baby.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads into my next question. If you kind of, because it sounds like you've had a pretty wide range of experiences, from the really big to the dive bar and to now microbreweries. And you kind of answered this. Your favorite thing sounds like it's a dive bar, but going along with that, what makes a good bar from your perspective to be a bartender in?
What makes a good bar? I'd say management.
Okay.
To be honest with you, a lot of patrons too. You want to have good people who come in. Definitely that tip well. But for me, having managers and owners that care, that take the time to look at your checkout, look at your comps, look at your voids, keep you liable for things. You don't want. I want to work in a place where I want them to succeed too, and that they're making me be a good bartender. They're making me feel like I care too about this place. And so I feel like definitely between here where I work at and First Street where I work at, those places, like I have so much respect for everything that they manage. It's very easy to just sit in that office and make a schedule and go home. But when you're taking the time to really make a business out of it and take care of your employees, it makes it a really great place to work.
So I guess management isn't always owners, but...
Not always.
Okay.
Not always.
From a drinker's perspective, it sounds like the experience you get in a dive bar, and this has been my experience too, is often better than in a large kind of industrial place.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to have more smiles, more talking, more personal conversations that don't have to be super intense conversations, but fun. Meeting people, being social.
Right. Do you notice a difference between kind of the craft beer type place, a brewery or a tap house, and your neighborhood dive bar in terms of the vibe or the way things are run or clientele?
Definitely
I'm just curious.
Clientele,
okay.
I'd say is like the number one difference, because you're looking at hours where a dive bar is going to be open until 2 in the morning.
Right.
A brewery or tap room is typically going to close at 9 or 10. So you're going to get more of those family people.
Right.
Or people that have good jobs in the morning.
Right.
The dive bars, sometimes you might see some
stragglers till 2.
Exactly. Some stragglers
Right.
may not quite have their head on their shoulders all the time.
Right.
So I feel like the clientele would be the biggest difference.
Right.
The freaks come out at night, right?
Right. Exactly. And have you noticed, is there kind of like the beer snob thing going on now, where there's
it's been going on.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It makes it hard to work for the breweries too. I know a decent amount about beer, and thanks to these guys, they've taught me a lot over the last decade.
Right.
But you go I still get nervous talking about beer with people at my tables, because I'm just like, oh, they're gonna know more than me. And
Oh yeah.
I'm like, it's silly. Like, everyone's gonna like what they like. And you want a great beer, and it's good to know how the beer is made and all these different ingredients, but the snobbiness of it is difficult sometimes, where everyone knows more than the next person.
Yeah, it's funny. It reminds me of how wine used to be.
Absolutely.
And it's that, like, the old movie Sideways, where the guys, oh no, it's a certain kind of honey from a certain kind of bee that I taste, and and I've seen that, and I'm like, it tastes like beer to me. I don't know, but it is interesting, and I'm a whiskey drinker myself, so you can get notes, but you can't. I don't know. You need a really good palate to be able to pick out these little things that some people think they can pick out.
That would be another difference between the dive bars and the tap rooms too, is like the quality of liquor you're receiving.
Mm-hmm.
at some of the places I worked. We have some top shelf stuff, but
Right.
we're pretty limited. Usually the clientele is, well, later at night, it's the younger crowd.
Right.
Kind of gets younger and younger as the day goes on.
Right.
And they're looking for the cheaper stuff. So
Right.
for First Street, it's more of a quantity over quality kind of situation,
Right.
high volume. And for places like this where people really just want to come in and enjoy that good liquor, that great beer, they might spend a couple extra dollars on each drink.
Right.
You know, I feel like that would be another big difference too.
Right. Okay. Kind of in the similar vein, in the last few years, the kind of craft cocktail thing has taken off, and I'm just curious on your take on that.
I almost lost a finger to a craft cocktail.
All right. This sounds like a good story. How does that happen?
Oh, man. So I got introduced into the craft cocktail scene in San Francisco right as it was starting to get big. And I came from Bub's Dive Bar in PB where, you know, we're making Jack and Cokes and with rum and Cokes and nothing crazy. So I learned a lot. But the stress of knowing each ingredient, making all these different syrups for all these different drinks, the amount of time it took to make that one drink for that one customer that had to be perfect every time was so stressful. And they would enjoy it for maybe like 5 minutes and then, you know, on to the next. And it's like, that's something that's meant to be savored.
Right.
So my finger experience in this whole thing, I was like on day 6 of training, working a double the last day. We're super busy. This place is huge. I barely know what I'm doing. And the owners sit at the bar and taste every drink that goes out, making sure it's perfect. I'm making this one, and I go to like peel a lemon, and it like a whole chunk of my finger just came off in a drink. And I just remember I went to the back, and just my manager comes with a towel, and I'm just like, I can't do this. This is too much. So, and then I pulled it together, and it was fine. And it got easier with the days. But however, when I'm going out drinking, it's really the last thing I want. I'll enjoy a craft cocktail if it's a nice quiet place. You're sitting at the bar. You got a nice bartender. You know, when you're not waiting 20 minutes to get that cocktail, you're gonna sit there and savor it. And I wouldn't want to do it every day or every night.
Yeah.
But you know, it's kind of nice every once in a while.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's interesting because another one of the guests we've had is a craft distiller, and he basically said, you know, as a marketing strategy for them, they have to really figure out how their different spirits will go into craft cocktails now. Because he's not just making bourbon, he's making, you know, so he had to make flavored bourbons to kind of...
Right. To present it to the bar, to the owner, to whoever's buying.
Right.
Like, how am I going to sell this liquor? How am I going to sell this? You know, you need it in a drink form to put on a menu in front of someone's face and they'll be like, I'll have that.
Yeah, and pay $20 for it.
Typically, yeah.
Yes, yeah. That's interesting. Along the same lines, have you noticed there's kind of, I don't know, theme bars or bars that pop up that are trying to create a vibe around craft cocktails? I'm thinking of like Raised by Wolves and
What's that one?
It's in UTC, so it's like a speakeasy theme.
Oh, fun.
And there's, you know, in LA there's a bunch of these, and I'm just curious if you've noticed that.
I've heard of a few speakeasies in the area opening up.
You know, the bartenders will have aprons and the little
kind of hipstery.
Yeah,
yes,
the hipstery
absolutely.
vibe. Yeah.
Which that all I feel like came from San Francisco. When I was there, that was kind of really getting big, and then I came back here, and all of a sudden it was like the North Park isn't North Park anymore.
Yeah.
Encinitas is starting to change. Like there's all sorts of areas. Absolutely, that trend is big.
Yeah.
Eureka even over here, great cocktails and everything, but they have that theme as well.
Yeah. I wonder, is that the same Eureka at San Diego State?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
They're doing very
They're
well.
popping up.
I've been over to the one by San Diego State, so. So let me look. Let's see here. And what's your favorite drink to make? Is a fingerless drink. That doesn't involve
I like to
cutting
pull
yourself.
a Bud Light.
Bud Light. Okay.
No, probably like my favorite drinks to make are like a Manhattan. Just
Okay.
those like super classic. The San Francisco gave me really great training and like
Yeah.
the classic ways to make
Yeah.
these certain drinks, these staple drinks, and those were how I really got my skills.
Yeah, and you don't need to name where you worked in San Francisco if you don't want to, but it's interesting. They have some of the oldest bars in the country that are still going, which are really cool. I did a few of those last year, and it was...
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Which ones?
I did one that was a steakhouse. I think it was called Sam's.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to remember. Another one had been around since like the late 1800s. So I'd have to look it up. But
Yeah.
it was interesting because it was like, I think what the hipster bars are trying to get to, except the bartenders were like 70. And when they're not hipsters,
They're
you
not
know,
quite
this
there
is
yet.
actually the apron he wore 30 years ago when he was doing that. So...
In San Francisco, I feel like there's a difference between the craft cocktails you're going to make and just having quality ingredients.
Right.
You know, nowhere in San Francisco on a gun do we have a sweet and sour. You're
Right.
using fresh citrus for everything. You're making your own simple syrup. So just the quality of the cocktail was already better by just using those ingredients.
Right.
Whereas, you know, a dive bar, you're going to have everything on a gun.
Right.
Nothing really fresh.
Right.
So that changes the whole thing. But you can still, make a really quick margarita or whatever I need to make with quality ingredients
Right.
in San Francisco where that was
Yeah.
available to us. Like
Yeah.
I worked at a little 90s hip hop dive bar out there in the Mission that we're jam packed, but we still use fresh everything and still busted out all those numbers and drinks, and you didn't wait 20 minutes for a nice cocktail.
Well, there you go.
But I also didn't have to shave anything off
Right,
my finger.
Right, right.
Or
No
make any
fire
syrups.
involved or anything.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who is young and wanted to get into the bartending business? What would advice?
Don't take a class.
Okay.
I feel like with everything in life, experience is your best medicine. I don't feel like getting certified in bartending is worth it. I always say start at the bottom, work your way up, prove yourself to everyone in the restaurant. Prove it to your employees, prove it to your customers, prove it to your bosses that you know what's coming next, you know how to act ahead, you know how to multitask, you know how to do this, and show that you're willing to work. And then you can start kind of working your way up, doing the bar backing thing and
Right.
all that.
All right. Last question that I have: if you kind of look back over the years, what are the more difficult situations you've had to deal with as a bartender?
As a bartender?
Yeah.
One of the things, and I think we touched on it a little bit, was cutting people off, cutting your friends off, your regulars off. That's your money. That's the bar's money. It's also your biggest threat, your biggest liability is
Right.
that person getting in their car, driving home, getting DUI, us coming back and getting fined.
Right.
And talking to someone older than myself, they think, I'm in my 30s, they think I'm barely 21, and so there's a different level of respect that I get
Right.
as a bartender. I noticed that I work with 2 older men on the weekends, and they don't get the kind of same treatment or behaviors that I would get on the other side of the bar
Right.
when I'm trying to be forceful of, no, I'm sorry, you've had too much. Oh, I've only had one. No, I can't serve you anymore.
Right.
You're too intoxicated. I can lose my license. Like
Right.
the bar can lose the license. So learning how to talk to adults when they've been drinking
Right.
is one of the biggest challenges in any bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's funny is now I'm in nursing school and I work in like the emergency department too. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like sending people from the bar to the emergency people.
Right,
It's
right.
like I'm dealing with both aspects,
Yeah.
both sides
yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
So that would be the hardest. And the multitasking, the people skills, that all
Yeah.
comes. It's the alcohol and the way it affects people.
Right,
That's,
right.
That can be tough.
And I imagine occasional fights and things like that. And
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The fights are tough. Luckily, I have bar backs or
you got
security guards for
and,
that.
Yeah, you're not dealing
Here,
with that,
I'll just
yeah.
grab maybe one of the brewers in the back.
Yeah.
We don't get fights here, though. That's the other thing. We close early. We don't have liquor. We just beer and wine. And
Right. And actually, I lied. I got one more question. You actually have beer and wine, no liquor, but you have food.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed a difference at places that serve food versus?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It's night and day.
Just a different vibe. People get less drunk. And
Not.
not.
They start off less drunk. I think the liquor part of it's a big deal too.
Yeah.
But people can sit here and have, this is their normal
Right.
baseline of I'm gonna have 7
Right.
beers and that's what I drink and that's how I am and I function and sometimes they are fine.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
inside you're like, oh, God, I can't serve them this beer, but
Yeah.
you're okay.
Yeah, no, I can imagine it's hard. I mean, and I know I keep saying I had a last question, but I just thought of another one.
Go for it.
It's probably difficult, I'd assume, to count people's drinks to kind of like, say you got a really busy bar. Is it easy for you to figure out, okay, that guy had 5 and this person's on their second one, or do you just kind of go by how they behave?
Well, for one, it's in the computer.
Okay.
Too. Yes, if there's separate tabs, you know, guy brings in a group of people and is buying shots
Right.
and whatnot, then that makes it more difficult.
Yep.
But I think most bartenders, most of them who've been doing it a long time, you're keeping track as you go.
Yeah.
You are, if you're not looking up at your customer each time you're serving them, you are doing yourself terrible duty of over serving and
Right.
possibly I'll even look at who's around them too, like what's going on, like okay, that person I noticed went to a different bartender too, and you're just constantly
Right.
observing where these people are, what they're doing, what they're drinking.
Right.
We see a lot.
Yeah. No, I'm sure you do.
And
I'm
it's
sure you do.
important
Yeah.
because sometimes I was overserved last night, you know, and always blaming the bartender for it.
Yeah.
Like, I tried to tell you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
tried to tell you cut off.
Yeah.
But I think most of us have a really good general idea of how much someone's had to drink.
Do you think, like in a place like PB, and for those of you listening that aren't in San Diego, PB is a giant bar district in San Diego. I think last time I looked, there were 60 licenses on one street.
It's huge.
Do you think in those kind of bar district areas, it's harder to be a bartender where you might have someone who's kind of had 5 drinks next door and then now they're in your bar?
100%, and a lot of that goes with having good security at the door.
Okay.
You know, someone shouldn't be allowed in the bar if they are already clearly intoxicated.
Right.
You know, so their job is to watch that person walk down the street. You know,
See
just
how
how are they getting in their purse? How are they doing this? And because I mean, at the end of the day, it's on the bartender if that bartender ends up serving that person.
Right.
But you know, it's just these little lines of defense
Right.
the whole way. And yeah, PB makes it real hard. We used to get pub crawls in PB on a Saturday,
Yeah.
just going bar to bar to bar, and you know, they're doing shots and this and that. And there's times to cut it off, and there's times we're like, okay, well, you know, they're not driving, they're just gonna walk to one more. Now it's that bar's problem, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how each bar tends to pawn it off. And I'll be honest, like we've all done it.
Yeah.
Kind of like, well, it's their problem now, but. And then there's also, you probably got someone puking in the bathroom, and then so you're almost hoping for that. So then you're like, all right, everyone out. Like now I can everyone's done, we're good.
Yeah.
But it definitely makes it hard. You want to have good staff, good people who aren't afraid to cut off, aren't afraid to like not serve someone who's strong.
Yeah.
Know that person's probably not even going to remember tomorrow. It's not like it's affecting your business. You don't want to lose your license.
Yeah, you know, so you were probably in college when I did this study, but we did a study in PB where actually we found that people were going into bars, we were breathalyzing them on their way in. They were already at 0.04. You know, 2, 3, 4 drinks depending on the size of the person. And they'd already been to 2 other plares and started drinking at home. So it's very common for people to kind of go in. And then when you'd ask them, it'd be like, well, we go here first, and then we go to the next bar, this, you know, whatever bar it was, second, and we end the night here. The place that ends the night might be the most popular bar, but also the highest risk bar.
That's my other bar. That is us. We don't have food.
Right.
But we are very popular. We have live music. We have pool table. We have shuffleboard. We have great restaurants nearby us. We allow food in. You're more than welcome to bring your dinner in. But what happens is people go to Friday, Saturday night. They go out. They do whatever they do at home first. They go to their restaurant, they eat their food, they've had several cocktails already. They come to our door, and that's where that first line of defense needs to happen with our security guards. And sometimes they miss them. Sometimes we're like, how did this person get in?
Right.
But then at that point, you're just trying to keep them even. You don't want, like, if they're trying to order shots, you're like, no, how about we wait like 30 minutes? How about, we finish this drink and have a water?
Yeah.
You just want to kind of monitor.
Yeah.
If someone's giving, like, that radar kind of goes off, you're like, I'm not comfortable serving, get out.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely, we're the place everyone goes late night.
So so
I don't even go into work till 10 p.m. on Fridays.
a more difficult bar, I'm sure, to work in, but probably fun too. So.
Yeah, and the bartenders are real experienced, and again, management's great. So the owner's always there on the weekends. He's there to diffuse any arguments or fights or problems, and that's what I love too. He doesn't just leave it to us. He's there.
Well, very good. So last question, this time for sure. When you get your nursing degree, are you going to keep bartending, or are you done?
I think so.
Oh,
yeah.
really? All
yeah.
right.
It's
So-
kind of the same deal,
That's cool. Well,
I like it. Maybe one night a week.
All right. Well, very good. Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'm sure this will be interesting to people. So,
We'll see.
all right. We'll see. All right. Thanks.
Thanks.